I'm just going to hand it to you because you lied.
All right.
Okay. So you just point that wherever
someone's talking.
Wherever interesting things are happening.
Why are you barefoot?
Describe for me the feeling of walking around with shoes on.
Usually it's quite comfortable. It offers a little bit more support than just walking barefoot.
You were already playing out your bias and telling me all of the advantages of shoes. Just simply describe to me what it feels like to walk around with shoes on.
Pretty much the same as it would be walking barefoot.
How about it feels the same every step you take? Because you're always stepping on exactly the same piece of shaped foam. Now, take your shoes off, and everything you step on is an adventure. You don't know what the top of that desk feels like with your feet. I do. I bet you don't know what this carpet feels like on your feet. I do. I'm never going to be on my deathbed and say, I wish I had touched fewer things with my feet.
Do you make your collages or the poems first?
Oh, poems come first.
The images from your collages, are they your own personal photos, or are they mostly just from the internet?
90% of the photos I use for those collages are stolen from friends on Facebook. Yeah. And then, every once in a while, like the dinner fight, I said I need a picture of a table, a woman sitting at a table, and a sturgeon. So I went and typed in table, interview, I think, because I knew that the kind of gestures that I wanted for that, and then sturgeon.
What's a sturgeon?
A sturgeon is a fish.
Why did you choose the sturgeon for a dinner fight specifically?
It rhymes with, it near rhymes with burden.
What made you first start your poetry blog?
I had a friend who pointed out that I was writing tons of poetry and doing absolutely nothing with it. As soon as the friend pointed out, why don't you just immediately put them up on the web where people can read them? I was like, that's brilliant. And so I started doing that. And people still don't read them. Except once a year when people are assigned to. Thank you. But I feel like having them up there gives me a sense of accountability. That could be phrased better, and the entire world could potentially be reading this. It keeps me accountable in my own brain.
Do you have an idol?
An idol.
Yeah.
Like a little carved image that I pray to in the morning.
That, or someone you look up to?
If you're talking about people who I take as models for my writing, John Oliver and Stephen Colbert and anybody who uses language intelligently.
What did you think about John Oliver's Marlon Brando book?
I think that's great. The idea of this sort of tongue-in-cheek, activist, critical journalism comedy that is coming out right now just makes me so happy, because it gives people hope and it gives people something to do. There's nothing worse than a documentary that tells you how the world is going to shit and then rolls credits. And especially when there are people who are talking down to, insulting, oppressing certain portions of the population. When somebody comes out and says, I know you're unhappy about this, and here's a simple thing that you can do to fight back against that, either just symbolically or actually practically, that's wonderful. So it's a social service. Very happy about that. And it was a cute book. It looks like a good book.
What is your writing / creative process like?
What is my writing / creative process like? So I was driving a person down here today. I just dropped him off in your parking lot. I don't know if that's against school policy. He's like, oh, so you're going to go talk to people about poetry? Write a poem about me, right? And I'm like, what? He's like, right now. You always got to be ready. So extemporaneous sometimes. The hardest poems to write are the ones where I have an idea and I try to put words to them. The easiest poems to write are the ones where an idea takes the form of words and pops itself in my head. And then I just build on it. Because those poems tend to flow out. I know what you're thinking, but it isn't true. There is no escape waiting outside of you. Oh! That popped in my head, and then I wrote a whole poem out of it. And that was a pleasant and rewarding experience.
Did you always just kind of have ideas pop into your head, or in 5th grade was it a little different? I guess even the focus of your writing specifically, how do you feel like it's evolved as you've written over the years?
Well, of course, the poems I wrote in 5th grade are not poems that I would write now. But not in any sort of I've grown past that. I've just grown. Right? And the things that I was thinking about in high school, I'm not thinking about now. I used to write these epic, gigantic, high-minded things. And I think that's a reflection of where you are when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. But when you're 34, things get smaller. Things get more nuanced and subtle. And so now my poems tend to be smaller. They tend to be about seeing the universal in little things, as opposed to just looking for the universal in myself, right? Which is what 20 is all about. Or not. What are you thinking?
Oh no, I was just wondering what the shirt about where you got the shirt from.
Oh, it's the Museum of Jurassic Technology. Anybody been?
I've been there. It's so funny.
Yeah, you tell them about the Museum of Jurassic Technology.
It's just a bunch of random stuff.
Yeah, this is the dogs of the Russian space program. This is their astronaut outfit for the dog.
Yeah. So, many writers have different reasons for writing. For you, I assume it's not for money because you're posting it on Blogger, and it's not for popularity because you're
And
also,
no one reads it.
Yeah, because you're also posting it on Blogger. But other than probably just yourself, why do you write? What gets you to continue writing poems? Because you've been doing it for so many years. Is it enjoyable? Is it just enjoyable, or is there another meaning behind it for you?
A lot of people have been surprised when they find out that I've never been to therapy. And I think that in large part that's because of the fact that I regularly write poems, especially when I feel like I have something to work through. If something's bothering me, if there's a feeling inside of me and I don't know where it's coming from, but I know what the feeling feels like, if I sit and write about that feeling, even through a metaphor, like just creating images that come into my head, all of a sudden I start seeing with more clarity what it is that I'm experiencing and where that's coming from. And so it's a way for me to work through and gain insight to myself. And I also feel that when I'm in my best and clearest state, if I can capture that, then those poems become sort of mantras that I can go back to and remind myself of when I'm in a darker place. And I can bring myself back to that calm, that level, using poems. So I think it's a medicine for me. Do you write poetry?
Yeah.
Why do you write poetry?
Because I have ideas, and it's just the best way I can get it down. I'm not a very good artist, I am a musician, quote unquote. I'm playing school band, so that means something. But poetry to me has always just been a way of expressing myself, and something I find enjoyable. And then my question is going to be, what is your opinion on mutual suffering that we have happening with our country and our government at this time? How it relates to hope and everything.
What is my position on mutual suffering and hope? I have no idea how to respond to that question.
People find comfort in mutual suffering, and that's really good because a lot of times that's because of things you can't change. But it also kind of creates some stagnation instead of trying to do something to change it.
So there are a lot of poems on my blog about the management of hope and about the pain that hope can create by building up inside of you a sense of expectation. And that learning to manage, or even to a certain extent dissolve hope, is really an important aspect of happiness, right? Because it is connected to acceptance. And that shift is a shift toward peace. You need a sense of certainty. You need a sense of comfort and purpose. And people will create whatever they need to find that feeling inside of themselves. But what you do beyond that is the important part. Once you're no longer suffocating, then what do you do? And I think a lot of times people just spend their whole lives shifting around their oxygen mask, and they don't get beyond, and the rest of the plane is filled with people who also need help. So that's the limit of mutual suffering and hope.
Did you major in English in college?
Yeah, my BA was in creative writing with a focus in poetry. My goal was just to get my MFA in poetry and then teach poetry until I died. But Long Beach State does not dig my poetic aesthetic, and so they rejected me from the MFA program 3 times. But the first time they rejected me, they accepted me to the master's without me even applying to it. So I got a master's in English with a focus in rhetoric and composition. I was like, I want to create. And rhetoric is about creating. And the rest of this is like, oh, do you want to read 19th century plays or do you want to read 20th century American poetry? And for some people the answer is yes, and for me it was like, no, I want to make. I want to make. So point me in the direction of where I will be making things.
Do you travel?
No, I really should. I literally this week had a friend grab me by the shoulders when they found out I'd never been outside of the U.S.
Wow.
But that's going to happen now because I just defended my dissertation 2 weeks ago. So I'm no longer in the hole of being a grad student, and I am planning to celebrate that by running all around the globe. I have an old roommate who lives in Ireland right now and is miserable, except when people visit him. So I'm going to go visit him, and we can mutually suffer together. Yeah. Yeah.
What kind of music do you listen to, if any?
If any.
Yeah,
I
mean,
like
some people
that.
don't
Some
like
people
music.
just,
Yeah. Or
Who
some,
are
or
these
some,
people?
or no, I mean, some people don't like avidly listen to it, I suppose.
You're like Jehovah's Witnesses?
But I just didn't want to assume anything.
That is, it's kind of you. I do like music. I was listening, bless you. I was listening to Stevie Wonder in the car. That's a really good sample of the kind of music I like, which is just anything that makes you move, makes me happy, especially the old Motown stuff. Tambourines and trumpets and people just holding a note. I also like classical for stop and go, because whether you're going 65 miles an hour or 15 miles an hour, classical's good. Like rock music, you can only listen to if you're 65 or over. You know what I mean? If you're in 15-mile-an-hour traffic and it's... You're just like, well, this is ridiculous. But if it's bum 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 bum, you're like bum bada bum 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 bum. And you can do that at 5 miles an hour, and it's fine. It's just as good.
Because you're not teaching poetry, what are you doing to make money?
I'm
Running to the phone.
Please evacuate the gym and the gym only. Campus is all clear. Evacuate the gym.
Yeah.
Here's a little travel suggestion. When I was 5 years old, I lived in Sweden for about 6 weeks, so you should definitely go. I've been wanting to go back for years. You should definitely take a train to travel all over because transportation in Europe is awesome. And a question that I have is, do you have any poems that you've ever looked back on in your blog and thought to yourself, why did I post that? Or, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yes, the poems that are more... the poems that are most reliably regrettable are emo poems, which unfortunately has become sort of a genre convention for current poetry. So much of it is this, insert all the adjectives of my identity here. They're important for shared suffering. It's important to have some people do these poems really well. I was listening, I was doing an interview about the Santa Barbara vagina monologues, because they're like, oh, the vagina monologues are really important feminism, but they were written by a white woman, so they're white feminism, so we're making sure that we have her stories to bring in the more multi-layered cultural tapestry of female issues. And then they had a sample of one that was a woman talking about being fat, and it was a whole fat poem, and it was beautiful. She was talking about taking up space and how women are not supposed to take up space, and it ended up being a very well worded, elegant anthem. But then
Slam poetry, is that what you were talking about?
I like slam poetry when it's done well. I like pretty much anything when it's done well. That's why things like racism, sexism, any sort of ism is silly, because everything can be good. Country music can be good. Rap can be good. But country music can be shit. And rap can be shit. Slam poetry can be good. And slam poetry can be shit. And I think that the thing that makes most everything good is genuineness, right? And fakeness makes things crappy. So when people do slam poetry, I walk. into the room. The room is so big, and I think, why am I walking into the room? The room is not me. I am in the room. That is so irritating, unsatisfying. You're not actually feeling those feelings. You're an actor, and not a good one. You're not channeling a place of reality. So yeah, slam poetry is good when somebody really genuinely gets into the words they're saying and is not just like affecting this impassioned style. Yeah.
Is poetry the only sort of writing that you do, or have you ever wanted to write a novel? Has that ever come to mind?
I wrote some short stories when I was getting my BA in creative writing. I've written a couple of screenplays. Screenplays are sort of like long poems. And then I wrote a 760-page dissertation. So that was writing that was decidedly not poetry.
How long did that take? 760 pages?
7 years. Yeah. And I finished it 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Since you're part of movie night, Mr. Zioli always is kind of shocked by like our ignorance of certain films. So if you like had like maybe like a top 3 of like films you think we would like have to see, like what would they be?
Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Death at a Funeral. And which Lars von Trier film? Melancholia. Because no one should be forced to watch more than one Lars von Trier film in their life. So, if you want something that's going to make you think about the nature of success and aptitude, I think that's a good thing for AP English students to be thinking about as they head off to college, into a bunch of leader courses that try and convince you that maybe you're not cut out for this world and maybe you're not good enough. Watch Melancholia. Yeah.
What's your opinion on Wes Anderson?
Did you see the honest trailer for every Wes Anderson movie ever? Yeah, that's a very good summary of my opinion of Wes Anderson. Quaint, pleasant, yeah, true, right? I think that's part of the reason why his films are so repetitive in their themes. I think that that's his life, and he, like all of his films are essentially an expression of him. So yeah, genuine.
I internet stalked you a little bit.
Cool.
A lot. Somewhere on one of your websites you said that you operate on well-honed principles. So what do you do when you realize something you did or something you believed in is completely wrong?
Yeah, it's hard. I think, I was talking with myself about this yesterday, that the safest place you can be is in a place of humility and service. If you are humble and serving, then there's nothing to defend. There's no high ground because you are underneath everything. You are there to help. And so if you make a mistake, you are the trash guy who dropped a bag of trash, and you pick it up and you keep moving. If you pretend, if you take on this pretense of I am important, I am wise, I know things more than other people, then you're constantly having to prove that you're above and worthy of this position that you created for yourself. So why create the position? Yeah, the safest thing to do is say, I am constantly learning. And there's a principle right there.
What's your opinion on sleep?
So elusive and important. Get lots of sleep. If and when you can. Yeah. I understand that there are life circumstances that will get in the way of you sleeping. Balance your excesses is one of my life principles that I have posted up on the blog. That is a mindset that really helped me to get through grad school in one piece, which was some nights you're going to have 4 hours of sleep, some nights you're not going to sleep. But make sure that when you don't sleep, the next day when you're tired, you embrace that tiredness, don't drink any coffee, and then crash and sleep for as long as possible the next opportunity you get.
How have you responded to like criticism or like rejection of your work? Like how do you continue to like push through that if you've ever like received any that's like particularly trying?
when you give a poem to somebody, it is a gift. Like you're letting it go. It's not yours anymore. It's someone else's. And if they look at it and they are finding anything in it but joy and satisfaction, or use, or some sort of emotive experience, like you want somebody to be happy with the gifts you give them, right? And so if somebody says, I think I'm going to return this, then that's the nice thing about that feedback, right? Is that this is a gift that you can keep giving to a bunch of people, and every time they're showing you how to make it a better gift to somebody. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing a podcast, like making one?
Yeah.
I would listen.
Yeah?
I would like listen to this conversation over and over.
I
think I should take notes.
Yeah. People have said the same thing about my blog. No one goes back to my blog after this class is over. But I would be happy, now that I'm done with the dissertation, I operate really well in dialogue. And if you have an idea for how I can do that, I will make this podcast for you. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, with what you were talking about with melancholy, I mean, I haven't seen it. So, I mean, I just kind of wanted to know your idea of, like, human success and kind of, like, value to people, especially in a college scenario where, like, you know, you might be seen as, like, a very small fish in a very big pond.
Right. Yeah, part of me doesn't want to ruin the surprise for you because that's part of, like, growing through your 20s and into your 30s. In your 20s, and this is common for most people I've talked to growing up, that, like, as you go through your 20s, you are actively seeking a sense of uniqueness. Like, what sets me apart from everyone else? What puts me above the fray? What makes me not just one little fish in a big pond, but like this really special fish that nobody's seen yet in this giant school? Once you get into your 30s, you are actively seeking those moments that reassure you that you are not alone in this world, and that there are lots of other people experiencing exactly what you're experiencing. We are all experiencing that. So wait, what was your question again?
I mean, just with what you were talking about with melancholia, and just like I was like curious as to what you place as an intrinsic value to humans.
So okay, I'm just going to tell you real quick what the story of melancholia is. Okay, it's the story of a woman who has deep depression, and she's a strain on her fiance, she's a strain on her family. She's almost like paralytic some days. She does sort of manic, impulsive behavior that's very destructive on other days. It just seems like she can't do anything without hurting people, right? Her very presence hurts people. And then you find out that this planet, Melancholia, the scientists' calculations are off, and Melancholia is going to crash into the Earth and destroy everything. And all of a sudden, no one knows what to do except this one woman who, for her entire life, the world has been ended, right? Her wits are around her, everybody else is committing suicide, like doesn't know what to do with themselves, and she's like, this is just daily life for me. And so by the end of the movie, she's the one who's holding everybody together. And that, I think, is the point of value. You can find all of your weaknesses, you may see them as like a problem, but you find the right circumstance and they're a benefit. And so the important thing is to figure out the tool that is you, and then find a good place to use that tool. And that's why you're special in this big one. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.